Hello and welcome to, I guess, what we're going to be calling 7 Minutes of Science Extra. This is a secondary video to this week's 7 Minutes of Science, in which we talked about the Rosetta Probe. The reason I wanted to do this is, even though I gave like half of the show over to the mission, still didn't really get a chance to get into any of the details about some of the problems that occurred. Now, essentially, what happened is the probe landed on the comet, which is 4.1 kilometers across. Landed, but the harpoons in the legs didn't fire, which caused it to bounce. It bounced twice before finally settling. Now, we know that information from the lander. We don't know where on the comet it is, because at the moment the telemetry that the information is transmitting back, there's no GPS or anything like that. It's very difficult to find out where it is if it isn't where it should be. They're taking a lot of high resolution scans of the comet to try and find it. However, even without the harpoons firing and without those free bounces, all of the actual scientific equipment on board the probe was completely intact, and as of recording has completed all of the major scientific tests and experiments it needed to do. That sounds crazy. It took us 10 years to get there, and in a day we've done everything we need to do. But the truth is, we've never been to a comet before, so just getting samples from the surface is incredibly useful scientific information, and it's really, really intriguing, the stuff that we can learn from just a small amount of information. Now, from where the probe has landed, we know it's upright, we know it's in that position. The problem seems to be that there is some shade falling onto the solar panels. So, the Rosetta probe itself is orbiting round the comet at, I think it's about 20 kilometres away, and it's going to actually move back out to 30 kilometres. Now, it's getting intermittent, as it goes around, intermittent data from the lander, including all of the scientific data that was part of this first initial testing. So that's really good. That's all good. This is, so far, the mission is considered a complete success. Now, there was always a hope that we'd get more information. Because this is in the shade, the energy isn't getting to the solar panels, so it's coming on intermittently, but the comet is moving in closer to the sun as part of its ongoing path. So there is a real chance that as it does that, more light will get to the solar panels, and once that happens, it's going to start heating. That will start giving us more power, which means we can go back to communicating with the probe. All of this means that there is a strong possibility we'll be getting more data, and it's gone into another hibernation period, and it should wake up the minute it's got the minute we've got sunlight onto those panels. The probe, however, still has more work to do. It's now going to move back out to about a 30-kilometre orbit, and then it's going to go into what's called a series of unbound orbits. Now, the idea behind these is that you can make an elliptical orbit around the comet. So imagine my head is the comet. It's going to go round like this. Very far off this way, very far off this way, and that's so it can come in close, about 8 kilometres or so from the surface, swing by and get some very, very high resolution shots. That's going to be interesting. I'd be very surprised if they don't target some of those shots to go over where they think the lander is. Obviously, there's still more information to come out of that. They're still looking in the area. They might still find exactly where it's situated. So all in all, a really successful mission with a few minor hiccups, and that's something that's astounding. This took 10 years to achieve. I don't want to think how much this has cost, because it must be a ridiculous amount, but 10 years to achieve, a huge journey of thousands of miles. And what I love about this as well, it took 10 years to achieve and still started in the year 2004. That's like, we started this when we were already in weird futuristic territory, and now it's done. It's got all of this data. That data is now going to be analysed, and we're going to learn a lot about comets. I'm not going to comment on that now, because obviously that data coming back still has to be analysed, has to be run through, but I'll be very surprised if up until now, Rosetta has featured on, I think, almost every 7 Minutes of Science. I think there might have been one where it was just in a transit period. I'll be very surprised if that doesn't continue. I think there's going to be a lot more information coming out. Now, the other thing is, of course, if the power comes back on, there's very intelligent people here on Earth who've been thinking for the last decade or so about what else could we get this probe to do. So there's a chance that maybe some of the data, some of the instruments might be able to be reused in slightly different ways to get more information. But we have a soft landing on a comet. We have a successful probe. Great day to be a human being. Basically, that's a big one. Getting to the moon, it seems like it's a bigger deal, and landing a man on the moon is a huge achievement, but it's actually technically a lot easier. Because I don't know if you've seen the moon, but it's fairly easy to find. Whereas getting to a comet, this is a tiny thing. This is, like I say, it's 4.1 kilometres across, which if you think about it, you can run in like an hour. That's even if you run really, really slowly, like I do. I think you can do that. Like a very unhealthy person at a brisk jog can do that in an hour. That's tiny compared to space, which is just huge. So there's a lot to be pleased with this. I'm really glad that the reason I did this video is because we record 7 Minutes of Science on Fridays after I finish work, and as such, I didn't have any of this new information. I knew it was going to come out over the weekend, and I wanted to have something I could say to you whether this was a success or this wasn't. And it was a success. It was a resounding success. It's really, really exciting. So thank you very much for your time, and good luck in your endeavours. If your endeavours be good. Goodbye.